Come on, babies. Well, they're getting up a little too high. No, now they are circling low. Now they're coming in. Here we go. We got them. That guy is in big trouble now. He is in big trouble now. Bang.
That ringbill has just met Flip Pallett. Countless other ducks have too, on numerous marshes over many years. Flip lives in one of the richest waterfowl areas in the country, and the level of intensity he brings to his curiosity about wild places and creatures is, very frankly, unusual. A native of South Florida, he is perhaps best known as an exceptional saltwater fly fisherman. He is an equally adept waterfowler and hunter, a man with natural enthusiasm for sharing his experience. Now he devotes his energy to full-time guiding and writing. Flip Pallett would shun the label expert, though it is a fair description. The key to Flip's calling philosophy is the precise identification and responsiveness to the duck in flight. In Flip's world, the deer, turkeys, gamefish, and ducks are the experts, and the answers come from them. That is why there is no Pallett system or gospel. That is why Flip is so worth listening to on the subject of calling ducks. You may find Harold Knight anywhere along the flyways watching, listening to, and calling ducks and geese. Like Flip, his life centers around the outdoors. Harold, continuing his study of waterfowl in their natural habitats, is always practicing and perfecting his calls, as well as his identification skills. In fact, to become a world champion goose caller in 1979, he practiced 8 hours a day for 8 months. Harold lives in Kentucky and is president of Night and Hale Game Call Incorporated, a company he helped to develop to make better game calling tools for the successful hunter.
You know, blowing a duck call is easy, but learning to blow a duck call successfully requires a lot of knowledge of the duck call, and lots of practice and determination. Flip and I became successful duck hunters by being successful duck callers. We accomplished this by being in the field a lot, studying ducks and how they call. In the next hour, Flip and I will show you the different types of calls and how, when, and why they should be used in different parts of the country.
When you set out to go duck hunting, you're going to have two very important tools working for you. One is going to be the duck call, and one is going to be the decoy. Today we're going to talk about the duck call. Oh, look, straight up. Straight in from right here. Major functions of your tools, the call and the decoy, are to get the duck's attention. Both are very important. The duck call may be a little more flexible in that you can call his attention to the decoy with the duck call when he's at distance from where your blind is or where you're hunting. You can probably expect, once you've reached a point where you're effective with a duck call, to be able to turn a duck and change his flight path, and you can expect a call to bring a duck back over your decoys when he's missed your decoys coming in. He may be generally on your flight path, fail to see your decoys, and then you can cause him to come back, see your decoys with the call. The thing that you can't do with a duck call is ask the duck to do things that he would not normally and naturally want to do. Can't ask a duck, for example, to fly over a natural barrier that would normally not be part of his program. He's not going to fly through telephone wires to come to your call and see your decoys behind a telephone pole. He's also not going to fly over unnatural-looking foliage, animals such as cows. If you're hunting in a pasture, they do tend to shy away from things like this. So try not to ask a duck to do something that ducks don't like to do. That, in great part, leads you to where you're going to set yourself up and what you're going to ask the duck to do and how you're going to call him when you see him. If the duck, for example, is flying through a large open marsh, you're going to have to make a pretty loud call to get his attention. The best way to get started in duck calling is to learn the call of the hen mallard. The hen mallard makes the loudest call, and that'll give you the best edge in getting most ducks' attention. The other reason for learning the hen mallard's call is that the hen mallard is a pretty gregarious duck, and they'll raft with almost any other species of duck. They'll come take a look at almost any other species of duck, and they'll call to almost any other species of duck. Very often they just call randomly to one another as they're in rafts of other ducks. So the hen mallard call is a good way to break into duck calling. Other ducks make different sounds, and eventually you'll want to learn what those sounds are and how to do them. But in starting, the hen mallard call is the best way to start. Because the mallard call is so readily available, it creates some problems for the novice who doesn't know what to look for in a call. My recommendation would be that you find a call that's easy for you to blow. Some calls require a lot of grunting from the diaphragm. For me, that's harder to blow than a call that you can just expel air into from your throat and mouth and get started that way. As you begin to shop for mallard calls, these are some of the calls that you're going to find yourself looking at. And as I said, you just want to look for the one that's easiest for you to blow, and you may have to buy a couple of mallard calls until you find out which one actually is easiest for you to blow. But fortunately, they're all not very expensive, and lots of people wind up with collections anyway, so don't hesitate to spend a little bit of money. It's probably the least expensive part of getting started in duck calling.
But it's one of the most important parts in calling. And because of this, we have several different types of call. We have the single reed, double reed, triple reed, and the middle reed. In my part of the country, one of my favorite calls in my collection is the Arkansas type call. And the reason it is one of my favorite calls, because it's very versatile. It has a good ring for long distance ducks, and it has a good soft call when ducks is in close. And it's just easier for me to control. This particular call is a single reed call. This call is an easy call to tune and control. This call also has a plastic throat. The advantage of a plastic throat is it doesn't swell. I blow a lot of moisture into a call when I'm calling, and I don't want a call that will swell up and change the pitch. This is a double reed call, popular in many geographical areas, because it has a good coarse sound that some people prefer. Another type of call is a middle reed call. The middle reed call is a loud call and carries well over open water.
Ducks that whistle and ducks that quack are both referred to as puddle ducks. And a puddle duck is essentially a duck that feeds in very, very shallow water. I would say from 6 to 18 inches of water would be normal feeding depth for a puddle duck. Examples of a puddle duck would be a mallard, a black duck, a mottled duck, a pintail, a widgeon, a teal, shoveler, and there are others. Then there are diving ducks. Diving ducks are ducks that feed in much deeper water, often to very great depths up to 70 and 80 feet sometimes. Examples of these ducks are the bluebill or scaup, the ringbill, canvasback, and the redhead. And again, there are others. Diving ducks don't quack, and neither do they normally whistle, although there are certain circumstances where they will make a whistling sound with their wings. The sound that a diving duck does make can be made with the hen mallard call. So between all of these calls, you can imitate pretty much the sound of most any duck that you're liable to encounter in a hunting situation. Boy, look, here they come, right in, cupping up. Bang. A good way to carry your duck calls is on a lanyard, which you can either buy or make yourself. The one thing you don't want to have to do is when a duck is coming from a distance, reach in your pocket and fumble around and find your duck call. It's handy to have the duck call already around your neck. I put my lanyards very often at different lengths so that, number one, they're comfortable and they don't fall into the water when I bend over. Also, when I reach for them, I can reach for the individual ones because I know at what level they hang. In this case, I've got a mallard call here, then maybe a backup mallard call that might be tuned differently for one of a number of reasons. And here I have a whistle to get to the whistling ducks. Now, when you have your calls all hung on the lanyards and have decided which call you're going to start out using, it's a good time to get into what these ducks say and how that language sounds. The duck really doesn't have a very extensive vocabulary, and he doesn't because he really doesn't have that much that he has to do. He must be in the business every day and every night of staying alive and making a living, and there just isn't a lot of socializing that a duck does, so his vocabulary is by necessity pretty small. So I think the place to start is with the basic quack that a duck makes and how you form that sound. The proper position in the mouth for the hen mallard call is with the upper lip covering the top half of the call itself. The calling is actually done through the bottom half of the call. It looks like this. And say the word hoot. Actually say the word hoot. Try that a couple of times, then actually close your hand around the barrel of the duck call. And as you say hoot, open your hand. By doing that, you'll actually force air through the call at the beginning of your hoot. When you open your hand, the air will escape and you'll get a quack sound. That quack sound is the basis for all of the other duck language that a hen mallard pronounces. So, if you have a call that's easy to blow, you won't have to reach way down into your diaphragm to say that word hoot. You can pretty much say it with your mouth just as though you were talking in normal conversation. If the call is somewhat harder to blow, you'll have to get down into your chest and force a lot of air through the call. I prefer, as I said before, the easier one to blow. The sound again. If you never learn another thing on the duck call, that call right there can be very, very effective in many, many, many duck calling situations. Most duck calls come pre-tuned, but sooner or later you're going to have to learn how to tune your own duck call. You're going to have to know how to do that because sooner or later you're going to get that call wet either by dunking it in the water when you bend over or blowing humidity into it and condensation with your breath. I have this call tuned just about at the middle ground of where you would want to have a call tuned in a hunting situation. Sometimes you do want to tune them higher. A good example of that would be if you have heavy fog. sometimes to penetrate a heavy fog, you might want to tune your call a little bit higher. On a particularly clear day when there's no wind or anything else to muffle a call, you might want to lower the pitch of the call. That'll come to you as you have more experience in different hunting situations. Note that to get the duck call apart, for tuning purposes, you separate the tube from the barrel, which exposes the reed. In this case, a metal reed. This is the reed. This is the barrel. And this is the keeper for the reed. The reed lays flat against this cutout in the barrel. Keeper lays on top of it. And then there's a friction fit back into the tube. You make the call higher or lower in pitch by extending or retracting the reed. If I move the reed out or extend it, that lowers the pitch of the call. When I back the reed back into the barrel, in this fashion, it raises the pitch of the call. For example, this would be a high-pitched call. Now I can lower that by extending the reed and making it longer. And that will lower the pitch of the call. Sometimes the call gets a little bit wet, and instead of pulling the barrel out and retuning it, you can just blow through it very hard backwards, and that'll clear it temporarily. Blows the moisture back out here through the tube of the call. Yeah, that's got it. Because the basic quack is not very loud, and because what we're trying to do is get the duck's attention, we have to do something else besides the basic quack to get that attention, and I refer to that as the attention call. Some people call it a hail call, but the purpose of that call is to first get the duck's attention. That attention call is a basic quack, made louder and a little longer, and is done in a brief series, usually 5 to 8 quacks in the attention call series. And that attention call series sounds basically like this. And remember, it's done just like the basic quack. That's the attention call or the hail call. In a hunting situation, when you make the attention call, you have to immediately determine whether or not you have gotten the duck's attention. And to do that, you really need to watch the duck and let the duck tell you if you've gotten his attention. Some of the signals that the duck will give you are very much the same as human body language. Very often they'll set their wings and continue, or suddenly set their wings and continue along the same flight path. Other times they'll immediately turn toward the sound of the call. A duck has got unique ability to course sound. You can hide in deep reeds with no decoys in front of you at all, and very often if you call properly and at the right time, that duck will turn immediately and come right straight toward you. And if you then proceed with the proper series of calls without any decoys at all, you can bring that duck right to the sound of the duck call. If the duck shows you that he's heard you, turns toward you, sets his wings, turns halfway toward you, or somehow changes what he's doing suddenly upon hearing your attention call or hail call, stop calling and give him a chance to commit to what he's going to do. If he turns halfway but continues generally away from you, give him another series of hails, the exact same call. If he then turns and starts coming toward you, you might try not calling at all if he's already on his way to you. When the ducks have committed and begun to turn toward you and come toward the sound of the call, that's the time to return to the basic quack or the confidence call. Ducks often make that sound from the water to a duck, in the air, together. You hear them saying that all the time. As the ducks approach you, Watch them very carefully for signals. Just because they're coming, they don't stop signaling to you. Very often you'll see their heads turning as they look down to figure out where they're going and what they're going to do when they get there. So you want to continue that confidence call. It just lulls them into a sense of security as they approach the set of decoys, and again gives them a direction, because you don't want them just to come to the decoys. You want them to come to the part of the decoys that will give you the best opportunity to shoot them. Remember that they have this ability to course sound, so they're going to come to the sound than anything else. When they come, don't jump up in preparation for their arrival and get ready to shoot them. Wait until they're clearly in shotgun range. I would say generally that's when you're working decoying birds, that's probably something like 30 yards or less. A duck is committed, he is going to come to the decoys, and he is going to come to the sound of the call, so let him do just that before you get up and start to shoot him. And for the ducks that don't respond to the hen mallard call, remember the whistles. When you're in a situation that you're hunting for pintails or widgeons or other ducks that whistle, remember that the whistle is a confidence call, just like the basic quack or confidence call. The whistle is made by saying two into the call. Two, two, two. It should start very hard with the T sound. Two, two, two. And then the little chuckling sound is just done to imitate more than one bird, and is done by saying ticka, 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 ticka into the call. Try first saying it very slowly, ticka, ticka, ticka into the call, and then slowly say it faster and faster and faster. It's hard to do it first, but eventually it becomes second nature. Just do a short pattern of those flutters after you do the twos. That's the ball type whistle, and the straight type whistle is blown as the ball type whistle, but you cover the bottom hole of the whistle with your thumb. You put your mouth over the top of the whistle in exactly the same fashion that you do for the hen mallard call, with the upper lip bridging through the center of the call, and you make exactly the same call as you do with the ball type whistle. The whistle is made rather softly, so it's not going to get a duck's attention from a long ways off. The whistle is usually done after the duck has seen your decoys. Puddle ducks or whistling ducks are very, very notorious for circling and circling and circling the decoys and not coming in. This confidence whistle helps to get them to commit and come into your decoys. That confidence call sounds pretty much like this. That call imitates the sound of ducks on the water and ducks in the air when they circle. They both make that same call. Often when you observe ducks, which you should take out every opportunity to do, you'll see the ducks on the water make that call, and you'll hear ducks that are circling waiting to come in make that exact same call. So it's as though the ducks on the water were saying to the ducks in the air, hey, it's okay, come on in, and the ducks were acknowledging that they're coming in, the ones that are in the air. So that clearly is a confidence call and doesn't carry very, very far, so therefore it's not a hailing call. You should remember that the whistle cannot be heard at a great distance. So it's perfectly all right to hail a whistling duck with a mallard hail call. You can do that because whistling ducks are all used to being around mallards, hearing mallards, because the hen mallard is the single most vocal of all ducks. So don't feel at all uncomfortable hailing a whistling duck that's far away with a mallard hail call. What you're trying to do is get that duck to look at your spread of decoys and come close enough so that you can then begin to whistle. The whistling should begin when that duck is close enough to hear the whistling. And that's going to depend on things like wind, and of course distance, how far the duck is away, and how loud you're blowing that whistle, which should never be overly loud. Again, that call should sound pretty much This call has the ball whistle, like the police whistle. Again, there was the straight whistle. They're used for exactly the same things, just different people prefer a straight whistle, others prefer a whistle with the ball, but they're used interchangeably. The fulvous tree duck is a duck that we have on this South Florida marsh, and it's found around the entire Gulf Coast down into Texas, Mexico, and the Caribbean. It's an exception in that you don't hail a fulvous tree duck with the mallard call. The fulvous tree duck makes a very, very loud whistling call, and they use it as a hail call, and they use it as an in-flight conversational call. That call sounds like this. And it's made very, very, very much louder than the typical whistling duck whistle. Let me try to give these guys a call here. These are well within range, and they're right downwind. Fulvous tree duck has a very distinctive wing beat. It's just very, very, very shallow beats of the wing. And their wings are so broad that they have to flap them very little to keep altitude. That's one of the good characteristics that you can use for identifying a tree duck, that real shallow little wing beat. And they always seem to be confused. They flit around now there. They just dropped air and lost about 200 feet of altitude. They just always seem to be in a state of confusion. And yet they're one of the most graceful and beautiful ducks that we have on this marsh. The diving ducks also have a confidence call, and it's made with the hen mallard call. The call sounds like this. And it's made softly, just like the whistle, and it is purely a confidence call. It's done by burring your tongue and placing your mouth over the mallard call in exactly the same way that you would if you were blowing the mallard call itself. Cover the top of the call with your upper lip and burr your tongue into the lower part of the call. Keep your hand closed over the barrel of the call for the first part of the call, and then open it for the louder second part of the call. I'll do it slowly. If the ducks are extremely close, what I'll very often do is blow the call into my shoulder. It muffles it a little bit and seems to make it a little more pleasant to them. Often they'll respond to it better because it is really a quiet call when the divers do it. Oh boy, oh. Now there is a perfect example of using that little confidence purr on the diving ducks. Those ducks were ringbills, and they came within 5 yards of this blind. You almost could have reached out and grabbed those ducks. So it's not a call that's going to scare a ringbill, so use it liberally when they're coming, just as those were. Okay, now we've got these decoys just about where we want them. I want to put this mallard over here, just downwind of the blind. Okay, so now we have a situation where any incoming duck, whether it's a puddle duck or a diving duck, that's hearing the sound of a hen mallard call is going to absolutely expect to see a hen mallard someplace in the scene. And here it is, right here at the source of the sound, near the blind, so that in case they're coming to the call and ignoring the decoys, we're going to get a good shot at them, and it'll be close. And if they're just coming to see the decoys, they'll still pick up, from the source of the sound, they're still going to pick up visually the hen mallard. but he's just buzzing right now. He had to see me here. I'm right out in the open. If I'd have stepped further on that duck, if I had stepped closer this way to the blind, instead of being back here where he could see me, that would have been a good thing. And I could have done it because I saw him a long time in advance. That's probably what I should have done. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. You can move around in the blind as long as you're down like this behind something. You can move slowly and adjust your vision through little holes in the blind and get yourself set up for both a calling situation and a hunting situation. Beautiful people. Well, now what you're seeing is the duck coming right to the blind, seeing me and flaring away. But they are coming right here within shotgun range, which is the perfect place that we'd like to have them. Now this flock is going to come take a look, but they're still pretty high. This is higher than you would normally want to call at birds, although this single is coming this way. Boy, he sure had a good look there, didn't he, at those decoys? Boy, but I think he figured out that they're decoys, but he sure did decoy. But even though a duck doesn't land in your decoys, you haven't been unsuccessful if you got him to pass over them within range of your shotgun, as that bird just did. Oh, I hear some birds downwind now. Getting a little attention here. These birds coming. Let's just confidence call them a little bit. They're going to get up overhead. Now they're right overhead. A good time not to call any attention to yourself by moving your hands or by calling. You don't want them to look toward the sound of the call or to see movement. Up. Now they're swinging back around. Now these birds are now totally committed. You can just see them cupping. Now they're in the decoys. Okay, you're looking at our landing zone. This one buys it right in the zone. Well, I thought he was buying it in the zone. He sure hovered. Now let's call them back. Now they're coming around. Get a little confidence call here. And these ducks are totally committed here. Okay, right in the landing zone. Right over the decoy, those ducks would be on a stringer now. It's really wonderful when the whole thing comes together and works. But you have to be careful. You can limit out in a hurry if you're not careful. Which is one of the biggest mistakes that hunters make, is leaving and going home right after they've limited out. It's a good opportunity when you're in the blind and your decoys are all set, you've got a good place, the ducks are working. That's the time to sit back and study the ducks. See if they can teach you something. See if you can learn their body language. See if you can learn what it is that they want to do. See if you can make improvements in the way you've set your decoys or set your blind. Practice your calling at that time, or bring your 35mm camera and take some pictures. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, and the season is very short, so stretch it out instead of being in a hurry and go home and clean your ducks. They'll keep until later in the day when the ducks stop flying, which they are really doing this morning. Okay, now we've had a chance to review all of the duck calls and to see them used in a hunting situation. Just to review for a minute, we had the basic hen mallard quack. From the hen mallard quack, we moved to an attention call, often called the hail call. Then we did the confidence call, which reverted back to the basic quack. So those were the two basic hen mallard calls that we used. And we used the confidence calls for the whistling ducks, and those were the various whistles that we reviewed. The other call that we did was the confidence call for the diving duck, which was done also with the hen mallard call, but was the purring sound or chirping sound that we used. There are some other calls, but the ones that I just mentioned are the basic calls, and the calls that you will most often, no matter how long you hunt, use in a hunting situation. Absent conspicuously is a feeding chuckle, which may or may not be a legitimate call. I have never personally heard it performed by a small group of ducks, ducks that would be similar in number to a stool of decoys. May exist, but I haven't heard it, and because of that, I don't do it. My basic premise in duck calling is to do exactly what I absolutely know that the ducks do where I'm hunting. It may be that in other places ducks will do different things and do them in different cadence, but where I'm familiar with duck hunting, we don't hear the feeding chuckle. And another thing that we don't hear is a very pleading comeback call, which may exist elsewhere but doesn't exist on this marsh.
In my part of the country, we mostly have mallards. Some days it takes a lot of calling, some days it takes little. What works one day don't necessarily work the next. Like Flip, I use several different types of calls. Unlike Flip, I use the feeding chuckle and the comeback call. I'd like to demonstrate a series of calls for you now. That series of calls consists of 5 calls. The first one being the hail call or the highball call. I'd like to demonstrate the highball call first. It's a call that you use when ducks are about 400 yards away. And I like to point my call right towards the ducks and do this. Now the greeting call. I use the greeting call when ducks have showed interest in my spread. Greeting call is an excited call. You want to get real excited when like this. Now I like to do the grass feed call, or a lot of people call the lazy hen call. This is a contented sound. And I like to do this to ducks when they're coming in close. It's not a loud sound, it's a very contented and soft sound. It sounds like this. When ducks have passed you by, I like to give them a comeback call. It's a pleading type call. It's begging them to come back like this. When ducks are overhead, I like to give happy sounds to them. And a happy sound is a feeding chuckle. A feeding chuckle is given by a duck when he's down on the water feeding. A lot of times it's a real guttural type sound. He's got his bill down in the water, and it sounds like this. To blow a duck call for a long period of time requires getting down deep in your diaphragm and forcing the air up. To do this, a person needs to have his lungs in good shape. And to get him in good shape, he needs to practice. I'd like to show you what I'm talking about. To be a successful duck caller, first of all, a man needs a good duck call tuned properly. Then he needs to practice for a long period of time, and then he's got to have a lot of determination. Hen mallards are individual just like people. Each hen has her own style of calling. Some are fine like quack, 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 and some are coarse, quack, 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 quack. Whatever type call you use is an individual preference.
The key to this duck calling and to learning the duck calling is to spend lots of time around ducks. If you're going to learn any language, spend time around the people who speak that language. If you want to learn duck, spend time around ducks, and that means in the marsh or on the open water. It's not a complicated thing, but it's a thing that you have to spend lots of time in the field to learn. That's how the experts who are experts became experts.